Assalamu alaikum and welcome to day 12 of our How to Read Quran series, a program on the Quranology Institute's YouTube channel. Today I will be talking about Quranic personalities, and this subject is very important because it takes up perhaps a quarter to a third or maybe even more than a third of Quranic text. So if Allah told us these stories, then there must be a reason for it. But unfortunately, in the Muslim world, traditionalists tend to see these stories as what they call past Sharia. So the Sharia which is not applicable anymore thanks to the coming of the final prophet Muhammad. This is not what Quran says, by the way. Quranists themselves are not very much better here, because if you look at Quranic discussions and discourse, they hardly ever focus on these stories. I mean, a notable exception is Muhammad Shaykh. Muhammad Shaykh gives a lot of focus, especially on the story of Ibrahim, the story of Musa, and the story of Isa. He's done a great job there. Mr. Pervez, he does use mostly the story of Musa, but not as much as Mr. Shaykh. So, as you can see, I mean, I don't think we are giving, as a community, as a Quranist community, I don't believe we are giving this subject the focus it deserves. So the question now is, what does Quran itself say about these stories? Well, if you look at chapter 11, verse 120, it says, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرَّسُولِ مَا نُثَبِّتْ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَجَاءَكَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَقِّ وَمَوْعِظَةً وَذِكْرًا لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And each of the stories we relate upon you. Now this is different from relating to you. We are relating on you, meaning it is being made relevant to us from the news of the messengers. So this is hidden news. Anba is something which is hidden, unseen, and it is being made relevant to us. And Allah uses this ma nuthabbit bihi fu'adak, to Allah strengthens or makes firm our minds. Now fu'adak fu'ad is the capacity of the mind to appreciate linguistic stimulus. Now if you look at chapter 6 verses 113, it mentions how our fuad, our minds, are attracted to zukhruf al-qawl, or beautified sayings. You see, so Allah is strengthening our minds through these concepts and brings us in these al-haq, or the truth. وَمَوْعِظَةً, and sermons motivate us, and وَذِكْرًا لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and vivifications for those who believe, or who are believers in these stories. This is a very high extolment of these stories. Why did Allah tell us this about these stories? Well, simply because these stories have an immense value in us understanding the message. And that's not the only verse, by the way. Have a look at chapter 12, verse 111. Final verse of chapter 12. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قِصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. And verily, in the essence of these stories are archetypes for the people of the core, ulil albab, the people of the lub. They reach into the very core of things. Ma kana hadithan yuftara. This is not an invented event. Walakin, on the contrary, tasdiq alladhi bayna yaday. It is a confirmation of what is between its two hands. Wa tafsil kulli shay, and a detailing of everything. So to the author of the Quran, to Allah, these stories detail everything we need to know. وَهُدًى and guidance, وَرَحْمَةٌ and means of evolution لِقَوْمِ يُؤْمِنُونَ for the people who continuously believe. So if you continually observe signs and you achieve that state of iman or belief, then these stories will have that immense depth for you. This chapter is very interesting that these two verses appear in two subsequent chapters, chapter 11 and chapter 12. Chapter 11 details the stories of the messengers, and chapter 12 gives you the lengthiest narrative of a messenger's story, and that is the story of Yusuf. We're talking about maybe 90 odd verses. This chapter is dedicated to Yusuf, and the story of Yusuf is the story of self-actualization. At the end of the story, he achieves the highest position of power in the land. So you can see why this is being mentioned there. And here's another interesting thing. In the beginning of Surah Yusuf, verse 3, it says, Nahnu naqussu alayka ahsan al-qasas. Now this is an emphasis. Nahnu, we. Naqussu, we relate. Alayka, upon you. Again, upon you. Ahsan al-qasas, the most beautiful stories. Bima awhayna ilayka hadha al-Quran. Upon our revelation or inspiration to you of this Quran. وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. And before this, you were one of the ghafilin, the people who were neglectful. So if you are neglectful about the meaning of life, then these stories will have that relevance for you. And if you can appreciate the symbolic nature of these stories, then they will come alive for you. So we're not talking about these literalist miracle interpretations of the Quran. You know, this is the Ibn Kathir method, which I completely reject. This is rather taking the symbolic meanings of these stories, tying them back to the instructions given by Quran on how to create a peaceful life, a life of salam, if you will, dar as-salam, and using these stories in that symbolic nature. I would ask you to begin doing this with the story of Musa. The story of Musa is the most relevant story to any human situation. And you will then see the power of these stories. So with that, I close this video, and I hope you can study these stories in a new light so that they can bring you the relevance which will then yield you that practical wisdom. Many thanks for viewing this series, and I hope we will see each other again tomorrow.